Hello, everyone. The theme of abundance is entirely relevant to my experience, and I want to tell you something about how we at MUBI are tackling the challenges that we all face as film exhibitors, and hopefully demonstrate that even the clouds facing us have a silver lining. I can tell you directly from the front line that the availability of content and the way consumer behavior is changing represents both a major threat and an opportunity for film exhibitors. We share your passion for cinema, and our goals are aligned. We have several challenges that we need to overcome. Among these are the paradox of choice, shortening attention spans, and a very fragmented audience. Also, the digital universe is fundamentally changing the way people behave. It's changing human behavior, in fact, and we're only beginning to understand how cinephiles are going to start to engage with content. It's a general issue that we need to look at and address. And I think it's very important because we need to maintain the special status of cinema as the greatest art form yet invented. My experiences at MUBI have led me to think there is a cure for these challenges, and I want to share it with you. Back in 2007, when MUBI launched, all the buzz in the online entertainment industry was about anything, anytime, anywhere. Some of you probably remember that phrase. And cinema was poised to be a primary beneficiary. But somewhere on the road to this bright new future, several existential threats have appeared. Yes, piracy is damaging, but I'm even more personally worried that we're going to lose a whole generation of the audience who will not have the patience, the education, or the understanding of how to engage with a challenging but ultimately enriching art house film experience. So, how do we watch now? What does consumer behavior of film look like today? What is this brave new world? Many consumers, especially millennials, have been at the very center of the decision-making process when it comes to the content they consume from day one. They've only ever used services where they are in the driving seat. First, it was binging on box sets rented from the local video shop. Later, they maybe mined the endless depths of the Love Film catalog. And now they subsist mainly on online platforms, subscription or transactional platforms where they choose the content they want to watch when they want to watch it. And their diet of content is in fact richer today than it ever has been. And they watch better content and more of it than ever before. And they're also watching in more places than ever before. They watch on the train on the way to work. They even watch when they're walking to the train on the way to work, which can be quite hazardous. They watch on the big screen at night, bounced up from their iPhone onto their screen. And they probably even watch in bed with their iPhone or iPad inches from their face late at night under the covers. The fact is, you could say that we live in a world now where people are obsessed and addicted to screens. So the rise of film consumption online is not simply a technical distinction, but a very real and significant cultural shift. To feed this content addiction, there are more ways to watch more films than ever before. And as a result of this shift and the impact of social media, we are facing a totally fragmented audience that also has a very serious attention span issue. So what can be done about it? Well, back in the good old days of the 80s, we would have, or at least I would have, gotten very excited and a tremendous amount of pleasure about waiting for the next Wenders or Godard film to come to my local art house cinema. And in fact, I would have made an event of going to see that film. And most importantly, that seeing that film would have given me a tremendous amount of cultural capital with my mates when we'd go to a dinner party or I'd see them out and we'd talk about the film. I'd actually talk to real people in the real world about a real life experience. And you could say that at that point, the cultural capital of film was at an all-time high. But today the equation has changed. And what I mean by the equation is the value of my time versus the cultural benefit I get from an activity has shifted. If I can get an adrenaline high and a sense of personal validation from the relatively low cost time and effort investment of posting a picture on Instagram and getting that instant hit of love and gratification from my virtual friends, then what is it going to take for me to actually go out to the cinema and see a film? The fact is, what will my expectation be for a trip to the cinema? So my time is more valuable than ever to me, but also my attention span is shorter than ever. So how can I be convinced to make the effort to go to the cinema and, for example, see a 3-hour Romanian film set in a flat? The film I'm referring to is called Sierra Nevada, and it was actually one of my favorite films in Cannes this year. It still has no UK distribution, but in fact, to see the film is a richly rewarding human experience. And by now we're all aware that we are no longer simply in competition with Hollywood or with each other, but we're all competing against 1,000 distractions, from social media to games to long-form TV. So how can we connect that fickle and demanding audience to the films we love? So I want to tell you a bit more about the MUBI story and how we sort of accidentally hit upon a way, at least in the online world, to solve this paradox of choice and partially this attention span issue as well. So first, what is the paradox of choice? A lot of you will have heard it mentioned, and in fact, even I didn't really realize what it meant until I looked up. There's a great TED Talk by the guy who wrote the book on paradox of choice, where he explains it. And quite simply, it states that when people have too many choices, we become overwhelmed and we cannot choose, which leads to paralysis. But even more than that, even when we do choose, we are filled with doubts about our choice, and this leads to dissatisfaction. So anybody who has spent any time scrolling through Netflix looking for something to watch and giving up, or even has spent the hours and hours it takes to buy a pair of jeans these days, there used to be like 1 or 2 types of jeans, now there's thousands of them. You get home and you try them on again and like, I probably should have gone for another pair, knows this feeling. So how can we address this problem? Well, when MUBI launched as a business, we basically pursued the same model that I mentioned before that everyone else was pursuing at that time. This was back in 2007. It was the anytime, anywhere, anything mantra. So we aggregated a very large library of classic, art house, and independent films. We offered it for transaction and for subscription, etc. We were pretty much doing what everyone else was doing. And we had a lot of traffic and curious visitors, but we weren't able to convert those guys into paying customers. And there's a saying, they say that creativity only comes with a brief and a deadline. And in our case, the brief was to convert that traffic more efficiently into paying customers. And as a small independent startup business, our deadline was the rapidly decreasing amount of cash in the bank. That really focuses your mind, let me tell you. So we reached a critical moment in our evolution, and we needed to change and find a new strategy. And then it hit us. We remembered what it was like choosing a film in the video store, like on a Saturday night. In my case, my local video store was Video City in Notting Hill. It was one of the great ones, and sadly, it closed last year, and it was one of the last video rental stores, certainly in West London that I know of, that held out. But I used to go like on a Saturday, all excited to pick something to watch, and I'd spend at least half an hour or more wandering around looking, at the various films, unable to choose. And then, of course, I would go over to, and it was inevitable, to the manager's selection. And there you had a great selection of films, 30, 40 films, a silent movie, a sci-fi, a horror, a silly classic, et cetera, et cetera. And then it hit us. Why not radically reduce our library and become the online equivalent of the manager's choice? We also understood that our strength as a company was in our editorial, our programming capability, and most importantly, our passion for cinema. And we felt intuitively that a smaller library would play to these strengths. So we changed our business model to what we are today, and we've been growing ever since. The model is very simple. You have 30 films. Every day you get a new film, and one that's been there for 30 days goes out. And this allows us to program every single film with a context and allows us to give editorial support to it, and most importantly, allows us to explain to our customers, to our subscribers, to our audience, why they should watch the film. It allows us to defend the films we love and share them with the world. If you don't like the film, that's fine too, because cinema is a conversation, and let's talk about it. We can argue that it's worth your while to put in the extra effort. If you invest your time in this film, the rewards in emotion, entertainment, or whatever will be enormous. So from that day until now, everything we do at MUBI is about curating an engaging program of films. And it seems that 30 films is a good number to give you enough choice without sending you into the dreaded choice paralysis. And over time, our subscribers and our data actually shows us that people like to feel that there's someone behind the programming. And in fact, often at conferences like this one, people will come up to me and say, oh, I really like MUBI, and what I like about it is that it feels like there's a person behind the program. And I'm like, yes, there is. Her name's Chiara, and she chose the film of the day in the UK today. And for better or worse, we actually know more about our audience than ever before. And we can use social media and performance marketing to target niche audiences and bring them to these films online, but also in the real world. We can turn these screens, these tools of digital distraction, into our very own acquisition and engagement channels. We need to flip the situation and use this area to bring people to our films. Watching films is both habitual and addictive. And if we can get the audience watching and loving and consuming more quality films online, that can only be a benefit to all of us. And I really think that we and I share a fundamental truth with everybody in this room. We love films. And if you love films, you cannot say that an iPhone is the best place to watch them. I would always choose to see a film in the cinema if possible. And that is why MUBI has started releasing theatrical films. We want our brand to be associated with these wonderful films in your cinemas and online. We see the relationship between the audience online and in the real world as two-way traffic and mutually beneficial. We make the films available in the cinema first and then online. This is not a day-and-day experiment. We believe in the theatrical experience, and we want the film to be seen by as many people as possible before the film starts its 30-day run on MUBI. In short, if the audience is living online, then we need to identify them and drill down into those cyberspaces where they're living and drag them into the real world. So what's the conclusion? Well, I personally think we're in the middle of a massive shift, cultural shift in cinema culture. But there's something specific that we can do to combat the problem of abundance now and keep the audience engaged in cinema. So in this digitized world in which people are constantly looking at screens, whether we realize it or not, our whole lives are being guided and directed by algorithms. In fact, many futurologists are discussing, grappling with the question of who's driving our lives now. Is it the humans or is it the machines? They also say that if someone gives you something for free online, then you're the product. You should think about that. But no algorithm has ever cried during a movie or laughed or been inspired to change its life. And no algorithm has ever watched a film with another algorithm and kissed. No algorithm has ever put a film, bear with me, no algorithm has ever put a film poster on its bedroom wall or thought about a scene over and over. And in fact, no algorithm has ever watched a single movie ever. So my feeling is that the human experience, curation, and the value of editorial opinion That is what can cut through this tsunami of content that's out there. In this world, we can set ourselves apart and give tremendous value to our customers through sharing our human experience and our knowledge and our passion and our taste. The etymology of the word curation is to care. If we care about films, if we care about our product, if we care about our audience, we need to value our editorial opinion above all else. We need to educate our audience and feel confident in our own choices. Go ahead and do something radical and innovative. Program that 3-hour Romanian film and leave it on screen for 6 months. And fight for the films you love. Because if we don't, who will? I know this is wishful thinking, but the world needs experts and knowledgeable opinion leaders more than ever. Cinema needs you. Be opinionated, curate, and care. Thank you.